Moriden Athluan. Historians still seek to find out more about the mer whose actions ended the Fourth Era. Many are the tales that have been told of him, and most of them seem to contradict each other.
Most know him as the fabled Dragonborn of the Fourth Era, the savior of all Nirn, the mer who restored the lost dragon blood of the Septim line of emperors to all Mandus.
Some insist that he was a cunning thief. More insist that he was a warrior without compare. Still, others argue that he was a mage of unrivaled power.
There are whispers that he was a slave to the Daedric lords. Some even claim, in tales told in the darkest corners of Skyrim, that he was a vampire lord.
Like all legends, there are bits of truth hiding among the embellishments and the exaggerations. No single telling of the legend matches any others. But there are some few things that are always the same. The truth, however. The truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Six Hearthfire, 4th Era, 201. I found the ruin where the bandits that Freewinter had mentioned shortly after midnight. I was groggy, but I was betting on them being even more unaware to not expect any attack on their home in the middle of the night. Even with the skies still alight with the fire of the gods, I was hoping, betting, that they would not see me if they even bothered to keep a watch. As it turned out, they did keep a watch. They missed me, a creeping shadow against the snow. I, however, did not miss them. There were not many bandits here. It was the work of only a few minutes to clear out the tower, something that Ulfric could have done far easier had he chosen his people's welfare over that of just the Nords. This is only further proof to me of his incompetence, of the need for his removal. Perhaps one day I'll be able to tell Freewinter about this. Maybe by then he will already know. For now, though, it is time to turn south towards Whiterun and deliver Ulfric's reply. And his warning. I passed through the gates back into Whiterun Hold just before dawn, and the scene that awaited me, well, at first I thought I was seeing things. Once I talked to the man, I was wishing I had been seeing things. A jester here, now. That alone would have made me cautious, but his story was even more bizarre. Transporting his dead mother, and the cart breaks an axle. The man might well be totally crazy, but at the same time, I know what is coming. The war, and more to the point, the Stormcloaks. If he is still on this road when they come through, things, I imagine, will not go well for him. There was a farm nearby, one that Cicero, the jester, tells me has already denied him help. Time is running out. Perhaps I can change their mind. Either way, I can't waste much time on this, but it may well be worth the effort, even if it is for a single, sad, insane jester. The matter was dealt with quickly. Lorius was trying to do the right thing in his own way. He was more concerned with not getting involved in potential illegal activities than he was trying to help someone who might genuinely need it. To be fair, the farmer did have a point. We have only Cicero's word that the box contains his mother's coffin. But really, that isn't the point. That is what might be. We have to act on what we know is. We know the wagon isn't going anywhere. We know that the Stormcloaks are going to be coming this way shortly. We know that the man, nutters or not, as Lorius puts it, needs help. Quickly. I told Cicero of the impending danger, and the impending help on my way by. He gave thanks and set to, trying to do more to prepare for the wagon's repair. For me, I continued down the road to Whiterun. Dragon's Reach was in a turmoil when I arrived. Armored members of the Legion were everywhere, shouts and yells were in abundance, and the Jarl was in his war room, making last-minute preparations and plans. The Legion must have been close when the letters went out from the Jarl, because they have clearly been here for most of the time I have been gone. I even noted the beginnings of additional fortifications on the main approaches to the city as I entered. The legate in charge, Scipius, took me in hand immediately after I delivered Ulfric's reply. Balgruuf wasn't surprised. Indeed, we got word that the Stormcloaks were approaching the city gates mere minutes after I arrived. With my duties to the Jarl discharged, I was sent to the line. I will be there, taking the brunt of the first attack of the war. Gods help us all. Catapult fire flew through the air as I raced through the city. There wasn't much damage yet, but the longer we let them fire upon us unhindered, the more that would change. What members of the guard weren't already on the line ran through the city, clearing the streets of citizens as best they could. This, then, was the reality of war. This, then, is the price I was willing to pay to ensure the death of one man. The main pathways were already shrouded in smoke and flames. Men lined the walls, barricades, and other defensive structures, waiting for the charge that we all knew was coming. At their head, I saw a face I recognized, one that I'd already learned to trust. Legate Ricca was leading the defenses. She noticed my arrival, but gave only the shortest of nods, a quick acknowledgement of my existence. Nothing more. We didn't have time for more, even if we had wanted to. The sea of blue tabarded figures charging up the way quickly had our full and undivided attention. On this day, the Skyrim Civil War has begun in truth. From the way the Stormcloaks fought, I don't think they believed there would be much of a fight. Despite Ulfric giving me the warning to pass on, I don't think they believed any credible defense could be managed, and were so shocked when arrow fire mowed down their troops as they rushed the barricades. The shock turned to incredulity when the legions became evident, their steel and armored forms emerging from the shadows to engage the rebels in close quarters combat. For myself, I took several arrows myself, and without the quick use of a potion or two and the help of some nearby Whiterun guard, I would not have survived. I believe I killed as many as 10 or 15 of the Stormcloaks, but the pain I took in return was substantial as well. For today, the rebels have been repulsed. The fighting now over, the survivors gathered in the courtyard outside the main gates of the city, where all were addressed by Jarl Balgruuf. The usual round of thanks, praises, and other talk was given, but some of the things the Jarl said ring true. Ulfric will not stop with this aborted attack on Whiterun. The initiative is now the Empire's, and the legions will need to move quickly to both take control of strategic positions as well as begin to take down the other rebel jarls. So long as they are allowed to reign free, they will continue to sow chaos and unrest. I met with Legate Ricker briefly after the speech, where I was commended for my contributions to the Empire in my service to both Whiterun's people and its Jarl. She then told me to return to Solitude, where I would be given my next assignment. I asked if I was to be sent to the front lines, and she smiled, an evil little smile. No, I wouldn't be going there. The general had something more in line with my demonstrated talents for me to do, she said. I requested time enough to sleep, as I had been on the move for nearly 36 hours, which she granted. I am allowed to remain until tomorrow morning, then must make for Solitude and my new orders. I stepped into Bellathor's to get a few items for tomorrow's journey, and now sorely wish that I had not. His banter has always been questionable, but so over the top that nobody with any claims to sanity would have believed any of it to be true. It seems that the insane would have been more correct. One of his more outrageous statements has been that if he had a sister, he would sell her in a second. It turns out he had a sister, and he sort of sold her to Ysolda. There is a story here, I know there is, but he didn't tell it, and only asked that I track her down and get her returned to him. I'm honestly not sure how to deal with this. I'll at least talk to Ysolda and see what's what, but this is beyond my experience. The mayor had sustained a direct hit during the fighting, it turns out, which means that, for now, there are no rooms to be had. As tired as I was, I couldn't even muster up the energy to argue, so instead, I will just go outside town and set up a small camp there before heading to Solitude in the morning. Not ideal, of course, but still far better than sleeping in the streets of Windhelm. 7 Hearthfire, 4th Era, 201. I packed up early and left the still-burning city behind me. I'd heard, through the night, various crashes and other loud noises. Some of the buildings have certainly collapsed in the flames and will need rebuilding. Part of me says I should still be there, helping to keep the city in more or less one piece, but, well, orders are orders, after all. Travel was steady and smooth until I turned a corner of the main road near Rorikstead, and saw something I had hoped I would not see again. It wasn't just a single dragon that we had to worry about, for there were now at least 2. I saw it, flying circles over a burning object of some kind just over the rise. And this time, I am on my own. No troops. No support. The beast, it seems, either never saw me or did not consider me a threat. Either way, it flew off towards the mountains, leaving me alive and grateful. I know they can be killed, but I'm not certain I'm warrior enough to take one down on my own. I investigated the burning wreckage and found a sad sight. A peddler and his cart, destroyed by the dragon's fire, I'd assume. I pulled the wreckage off the road as best I could and buried the bodies nearby as well. There was nothing to indicate their names or places of origin, so that, unfortunately, will have to remain a mystery. I continued on towards Solitude, and now I kept an eye on the sky once more. If two, why not more? I had almost crossed through Rorikstead when I heard the first screams, followed by a roar that I will never forget from the western watchtower. I pulled my bow, turned around, and bolted back into the village, already knowing what I would find. Perhaps here, with members of the Whiterun Guard, I could take on a dragon and win. With more luck, we could do it without any of the locals becoming the beast's lunch in the process. The guards did not last long. I don't know if their training simply wasn't up to the same standards as the ones in Whiterun itself, if the beast was far stronger or more powerful than the first that we fought or what, but they did not last long against it, which left me running from cover to cover, poisoning and repoisoning my arrows before sending them home into the dragon's face. I could tell the beast was getting frustrated, torn between frustration that it could not seem to get to me, and anger at the pain I was inflicting. I tried to use that anger against it, turning my fire towards its wings, hoping that if I put enough holes in it, I could force the beast to land. Surely something that large would be slow on the ground. When I did force it to the ground finally, it landed in, of all places, the village vegetable garden. The walls and the mill itself seemed to confuse the dragon, for once it landed there, it never left it, which made my tactics that much easier. Hide behind cover, pop out, put an arrow into it, then back to cover. It took time. But eventually, the dragon fell. I approached the corpse cautiously. I wasn't certain if what happened with the first dragon, that surge of energy, would happen here or not. When I was a few feet away, however, I could hear the chanting of voices once again, concepts and words swirling around me. It grew to ear-shattering levels before I again, trying to silence the voices, pulled a single concept out of the overlapping voices and held on to it. Again, the corpse caught fire, leaving a massive skeleton behind, and leaving me with what appears to be an understanding of the first word I'd learned, the one that Corvinioned. Time. I haven't tried it yet, but I get the feeling that were I to shout the word as I did force, that time would alter somehow. I'm afraid to try it. Certainly not around the village. I spent a short time talking with the town's leader, Rorik, before leaving the village. I wasn't able to tell him much, other than to inform him that it may be some time before any replacements for the guards arrive, given the events at Whiterun yesterday. His eyes went wide at the news that the war had begun, but they quickly hardened with a small bit of approval as he learned that his Jarl had sided with the Empire. He nodded and began calling names out as he walked away. I suspect that a very determined local militia is about to be formed. Bandits will have a hard time raiding here, I think. Speaking of which, I had to skirt around the massive ruin I now know to be Robber's Gorge. I was far enough out that though I know I was seen, only a single bandit took any shots at me. He regretted it. I can barely be considered a combat veteran at this point, but I know some of the basics now. Things like, if the enemy is in range, so are you. The bandit who shot at me got a returned arrow. I'm not certain if I hit him or not, but it was close enough that if I didn't hit, he at least decided not to try his luck again. Even after dark, there was obvious increased activity among the Solitude Guard and the Legion. Word has either already reached the city of the Battle of Whiterun, or they at least suspect it may be soon. I'll be delivering that confirmation to the General soon, but despite all the additional troops marching through the town, it is also obvious to me that the people of the city approve of it. Then again, they have a similar motive as I: revenge. For them, the loss of their High King in a duel that many say was more murder than fight. For me, not just for me, but for all the non-Nords of Windhelm. My report to General Tullius covered everything I've done, both for the Legion proper as well as Whiterun as a whole, since I last spoke to him. He was approving of my actions and choices, a relief, to be sure, but not unsurprising. I think I have a good feel as to the General's personality and goals at this point. Once my report was complete, he made his approval more apparent with a promotion to Caster. In terms of additional responsibility, there is none. But my employment has changed radically. Though Rika had already all but told me this, the General made it plain. He believes I am wasted as a regular frontline troop. Instead, I will be used in more shadowy ways, it seems. I have been ordered to the Legion's camp in the Pale, where Legate Rika will have the specifics of my orders. From what I can tell, looking at the maps and markers in the war room, the plan will be to slowly cut off Ulfric from his supporters. Dawnstar, Winterhold, Riften, and possibly Falkreath, though there seems to be some doubt about the last, will all be either subverted or outright conquered before he moves on to Windhelm. I hate the delay, but I think I understand it. Without help, without others to help back his play for the rulership of Skyrim, Ulfric's fall will be all but certain. I may not be on the lines fighting the Stormcloaks up close, but my actions may well be even more important. They will do the majority of the fighting and dying. But I will be the one making their attacks possible, which means that the more time I waste, the more good people will die. I will sleep at the Skiva tonight, but I'll be back on the road towards the Pale quickly. 8 Hearthfire, 4th Era, 201. The road was mostly clear, minus the usual cast of skeletons and necromancers at Fort Sunhawk, which I will continue to avoid, unless I have a very, very good reason to. I'll take a pot shot or two at them as I go by. I might get lucky after all. But otherwise, the idea of a frontal assault on an army of the dead really does not appeal to me. Stormcloaks, however, they are always on the menu. I had already passed Morthal and was pushing towards the Pale when I spotted a patrol of them just off the road. Unfortunately, that was when they spotted me as well, else I'd have been able to get to cover, pick a few of them off before closing. Instead, I had to pull a fast retreat while pulling out my axe and readying the flames, which, as it turned out, was enough to deal with them. Ulfric is down a full patrol of his mindless zealots today. Even if nothing else happens, today will have been a good day. Soon after passing through the Pale border station, somehow without drawing the attention of the Stormcloaks who were assisting in manning it, I turned off the north side of the road and entered the Imperial camp. After taking a few moments to warm myself, I reported to the legate. She had that same sly smile on her face when she saw me, and I still am not sure what to make of it. My orders followed. We will be attempting to take Dawnstar and the Pale through a small bit of misdirection in subterfuge. Dawnstar is close enough to Windhelm that they have a regular courier that makes the trip back and forth. Our own scouts have already confirmed that he usually makes 2 stops between the Palace of the Kings and the Jarl's Longhouse in Dawnstar. The first is likely not a place I can do anything with. Candlehearth Hall is in the walls of Windhelm, and I have a distinct feeling I won't be welcome there. That leaves one other known stop, the Nightgate Inn. It's not a reputable place, isn't associated with any city or town. Supposedly, it maintains itself on travelers taking the north roads, stopping in for warmth. Stories, however, say they cater to a less reputable crowd, and pretty much anything goes. Which means that is the best place to pick up my target, possibly with the help of a few septums and the loose lips of the innkeeper there. It's late enough that my arrival there might even look normal, which will help sell the entire charade as well. Once we have the orders that courier is carrying, I will be bringing them back to the camp where, I suspect, we will be forging some new orders for some of the Stormcloak rebels. When I stumbled into the Nightgate Inn, I likely appeared to be a mercenary traveler who had ended up being out in the cold for far too long, and grateful for any shelter he could find. The price I was charged for a room certainly seemed to reinforce that, anyhow. The innkeeper was bilking me from moment one, which it was exactly what I had been counting on. Rather than ask about the courier immediately, however, I went straight to the room I'd rented. In the morning I'll ask around, tell a few lies if I need to, but only to get the bare minimum of information I need. These people here may not be Stormcloaks themselves, but I can almost promise that they are sympathizers this close to Windhelm. When this courier comes up missing, I want as little memory of my existence as possible to be remembered. I slept with one eye open. I didn't trust them not to try stealing my equipment while I slept.